I'm bored. Let's read a book. Oh!
Destron sat in the armchair, his face gray-hued under the pallor, but without the deadly blue of the morning. "I brought an old friend," I said, but didn't get any further in my explanation. "Godpapa!" Deirdre didn't quite shriek as she saw the millmaster. "It's been so long." "Here to pay your respects to the deceased, Brettel?" "No, I'm here to discuss my godfather's future." "You can't foster her, I told you that." I touched Destron's shoulder and tried to calm him, both physically and by the infusing touch of order. "It's not what he means." Destron leaned back in the chair, but his color was a shade more gray. Deirdre looked from me to Brettel and back again, raising her eyebrows. "May I sit down?" Brettel didn't wait for an answer, instead lifting one of the straight chairs from the table and setting it on the worn wooden planks. "Laris, get a chair." So I did, and I got one for Deirdre and waited for her to sit down. It was her life we were talking about. She looked from her father to Brettel, to me again, then licked her lips. "What's this about my Deirdre?" Destron's voice remained sharp. Brettel looked to me. "I think she should consider a marriage proposal," I began. "A master hand with wood you are, Laris, but would you do right by her?" "No, I wouldn't. That's not why I'm asking. My asking for her hand would lead her to death." Even Brettel swallowed. Destron surprisingly didn't. He looked at me long. "You're honest, boy. I won't say much, but could you answer a question for me?" I shrugged. "If I can." "I'll try to be indirect. Was your woodcrafter master the only one Dorman respected?" I had expected something along those lines. Destron was a poor crafter, but perceptive nonetheless. If I understood those involved, I think so. Destron sighed. "Had to be. So you're proposing for Bostrick?" "Oh!" Deirdre covered her mouth, but I heard the dismay, and it ripped right through my chest, just like one of the prefect's chaos swords might have. "I don't have any better ideas. Can I add some to her dowry? And I have crafted a red oak dowry chest for her. Before long I need to leave. You all could be in danger. Besides Bostrick's family and Brettel. In the future, I would hope that would provide." My words trade off. I hated making the case for Bostrick, and there were lumps in my chest and my guts. My eyes were blurred. Yet deep inside I knew I was not right for Deirdre, but that did not make my task any easier. Deirdre was blowing her nose. "Heck of... You like her, don't you?" "Yes, that's what makes it harder." "You'd outlive her?" I know what he was driving at, knew why he was asking. "Yes, if I've survived the next few years, probably by a lot." "Why are you asking this?" "Because I care, and because it's the only way I can try to protect her, to allow her as much of her own life as possible." Both older men looked at each other. "We'd like to talk for a moment, Laris, dear." Destron's voice was calm, almost relaxed. Deirdre stood up as I did. "Papa? Godpapa? I need to talk to Laris for a moment, alone. Please excuse us." She looked at me with a smile, extending her arm, almost like one of the ladies from the street. Propped up as he was in his chair, Destron looked from Deirdre to me and back again. His brow mirrored puzzlement, and Brettel just touched his shoulder and nodded. I looked at Deirdre, somehow very regal in that moment, even in her faded blue trousers and blouse and old white apron. She seemed somehow relieved, yet beneath the relief I could sense the tension, like a coiled spring or worse. So I took her arm and we walked to the far end of the main room. I stopped, but Deirdre eased me on into her small room, with the narrow bed, scarcely larger than the space I occupied in the shop below. Say if she had a window overlooking the alley and the stable. Her arm released mine. Click. What? Her ringer touched my lips to stop my words. I could tell she was trembling. Laris? Her voice was uneven. Yes? I know you're some kind of wizard, but would you ever hurt me? Of course not, I protested, wondering where the conversation was going and why she had closed the door. That faint scent of women and roses reminded me of a night too long and best forgotten. Not ever. No, why? Crack, my head rang and my eyes blurred from the force of her open hand. When I could see, she had tears streaming from her eyes. Why? I just shook my head. She stood there sobbing. Don't you understand? Whatever it was, I clearly did not understand it. But all I could do was reach for her hands. She let me take them, and we stood there for a minute as she sniffled out sobs. Finally, she swallowed. I'm not a brood pony. I'll do anything for Papa and for you, but you could have asked. I was the one swallowing then, and finding it hard to see. Good old stupid Laris, working like heck to save the girl and not even asking her. But even as I kept swallowing, I realized the tension within Deirdre was gone. She opened the door. Just fine, Destrin. Too darned honorable. So you say. You know it as well as I do. Destrin grinned for the first time, even with the sadness beneath. You were too honorable. I didn't have any choice any longer. Not if I wanted to survive. I had to explain it to Bostrick, although I thought it was less likely he would either haul off or hit me. So I left the three to discuss details and went down to the shop. Bostrick was working on the tavern bench, and doing so quite effectively, having shortened the piece to cut out Destrin's misdrilling. I pulled out the 2 stools and set them by the workbench. We need to talk. Bostrick could read when to tease and when not to. He took one look at the side of my face, which was probably still red, nodded, and set down the shaper. Sit down, I said as I pointed to the empty stool. Is there a problem? For once he looked worried. Yes, but it's more mine than yours. Brittle says that your family has not arranged any future alliances, a marriage or anything like that. Is that true? That's true. His voice was cautious. I'm the 4th son and my brothers are healthy. The land is too small for me to inherit anything. What do you think about woodworking? I told you, I'll never be in your class. Do you like it? The redhead nodded. I like the woods, and living in Fenard is better than the farm. What do you think about Deirdre? This time his mouth did hang open. You can't. She likes... I take it that you find her acceptable? I kept my voice dry. This time he grinned. I have to leave before long. You know I'm not from Fenard. Brettel and I did not promise you anything until we saw whether I could be a woodcrafter. I nodded. But Deirdre can almost take care of herself, but without a husband in Fenard she cannot hold the property. Destrin can't last much longer, and I couldn't even marry her out of convenience. I swallowed. Leaving Deirdre was going to be harder than I realized. You like her, a lot. Yes, I admitted. But that doesn't matter. And when mind and heart were only sad, not rebelling at the statement, I knew what I said was true. Bostrick shook his head. I don't understand you. You're the finest crafter in Fenard since Dorman, and you'll walk away from fortune and a beauty who loves you? I don't have a choice, Bostrick. Please don't ask. I was still having trouble seeing. I take it that your family won't object. Oh, and she does have a small dowry. No, they'll be so happy for me, just joyous that clumsy Bostrick actually found a beauty with property. Stop it. I put an arm on his shoulder. One of us needs to be happy, and you and Deirdre can be happy together. Yes, so wizardly craft master. I punched him in the arm, but not too hard. And I'll do something creatively wizardly if you ever do something to make her unhappy. He paled. I think you would. I shook my head. Just love her. What else could I ask? If you did that, most everything else would follow, especially with Brettle's help. I know it won't be easy, not with Brettle looking over your shoulder. He looked at me strangely before shaking his head. Then, for a time, I sat down in my corner alcove. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss out on any of my videos. See y'all in the next one. Goodbye!